Oh, that's right.
Good morning. Welcome to the United States Sports Academy and our weekly sports talk program. With me today is Dr. Fred Cromartie, our Director of Doctoral Studies, and Dr. Brett Simmermacher, our Chair of Sports Coaching. I'm your host, Steve Butler, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the College Baseball World Series that begins. The first game is actually at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. I'm sorry, 1 o'clock our time, 2 o'clock Eastern Time this coming Saturday. And it runs possibly through Wednesday, June 29th. The way they have it set up now is it's basically 2 14 brackets, and the winner of each of those comes out, and then there's the best 2 out of 3 beginning on Monday, June 27th. Before we dive headfirst into baseball, we'd like to congratulate the Oklahoma Sooners on winning the Women's College World Series. That happened last Wednesday after our last show. Broke my heart because they beat Auburn, but it was really a great series. Game 2 was Auburn came back from a 7-0 deficit, the largest deficit ever overcome in the Ladies College World Series, Women's College World Series, and they won it 11-7 with a walk-off grand slam in the bottom of the 8th. So quite an exciting game.
The whole series was very good for women's college softball.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to show that you look at it 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it was always the focus on the West Coast. Then now, it's shifted to the South because you see that a lot of colleges and universities here, especially in the Southeastern Conference, have decided that softball is one of the things. It's important, and they're going to build those programs, and that's exactly what they did. They put the resources in, they built programs, they got in quality coaches. I mean, it's amazing. Auburn 2 years ago, they were, the doormat of the SEC? Now, all of a sudden, boom, they're there. So, it's a true testament.
A reason for that, but
that's
a whole nother show.
When I was at Auburn, I went to school there for 4 years and worked there for 5. There was you go to a softball game and there were literally, you could count the people, less than 100. This year, while they were playing in Oklahoma City, Jane Moore Field was packed.
Yep.
People watching the game on the Jumbotron.
Exactly.
So Clint Myers is taking that program from, like you said, virtual obscurity to last year they finished in the Final Four in the College World Series. This year they made it to the Championship Series. And you're exactly right. In 2005, when Michigan won the national championship, that was the first time ever the team from east of the Mississippi won the Women's College World Series.
And what's happening is a lot of those schools are going out west and bringing those girls.
Oh, yeah, the recruiting has expanded big time. But see, it's just like everything else. We talk about parity, and the paradigm shift is taking place in women's softball because a lot of these kids, and you saw them on the interviews, you're from California. Yeah, I'm from California, but when I came out to look at Auburn's campus and I saw the facilities and that, I felt like I was going to be at home here. And that's the same thing they said all over the place. So it's a true testament. There were several girls from California that were on Florida State's team, and they said the same thing. Hey, Southern hospitality is what brought me here. So
and a lot of that too is, it's expensive to go to school in the state of California.
Well, you have in-state tuition where you go to some of these schools.
Right, but it's still cheaper than going to college in California.
Anthony, if you remember back in the 70s, Anthony Carter was kind of the one who made the jump from Florida to the Big Ten when he went to Michigan. Monica Abbott was kind of the one who started this revolution in softball when she went from Salinas, California to Tennessee. And then, you're right. If you look at the starting lineup, California.
Yeah, exactly.
So what they're doing, Auburn's Player of the Year candidate, the third baseman, Casey Cooper, she's from Alabama. So what they're doing now is they're recruiting California, plus they're keeping their homegrown talent at home. But anyway, it was a great World Series. Oklahoma won the championship game 2-1. A tremendous performance by their ace pitcher. So now we'll transition from that to baseball, which begins this Saturday. Some of the greatest games I've ever seen on television in the regionals and the super regionals this year. I don't think anybody can argue that the game between Louisville and UC Santa Barbara was one of the great finishes in college baseball history. I mean, you just 3-0, 1 out, bottom of the 9th, 1 ball, 2 strikes. The hitter's named Sam Cohen, who had 26, a freshman, who had 26 at-bats all season, 1 home run. And the pitcher for Louisville is their first-team All-American closer named Zach Birdie, who was the 26th player chosen in the Major League Baseball draft. And if you watched any of the draft on TV, all the commentators were saying this is going to be the first guy from this draft who makes it to the majors.
The fastest.
Yeah, because he'll be the first one to make it out of all those picks. Because the first kid they took a shortstop, it'll take him probably a couple years. But they expect Birdie to be pitching in the majors this year. Guy throws 101 miles an hour, and for some reason he decided to throw a changeup on one too. And
Never understand that.
Yeah.
But then again, I mean, most of these coaches nowadays call pitches.
Yeah, you're right.
So
You're absolutely right.
it's got to go back to the dugout in most cases.
Yep.
Well, that's why I disagree with coaches calling pitches. I mean, how's a player and a whether it's a catcher or a pitcher learn to play the game if you're doing it all for them?
Well, the kid that hit it will go down in infamy for, the Santa Barbara program. He'll be selling it'll go forever and ever. The story in the history of his family. Oh yeah, I mean, that's just,
It was it's the first time ever for UC Santa Barbara, the Gauchos, to make it to Omaha. And what I found an interesting fact when I was looking online this morning, did you know that Louisville had won 186 consecutive games when they led after 8 innings? They were 47-0 this year, but going back over the last 2 years, they'd won 186 straight when they left. So this isn't the first good close they've had.
Dan McDonald's done a heck of a job.
Is that like UCLA back in the day, consecutive basketball games, all that stuff, finally losing? I mean, yeah, it hurt, but the bottom line is it was a pitch that was right down there, and that kid grooved it right out of the ballpark.
I mean, when you talk about clutch hits, it doesn't get any better than losing 3-0, walk-off grand slam.
Yeah.
And
Well, there were. Speaking of this, though, there were some great games, leading up to this final series here and that. It's like some people would have said, who would have thought Coastal Carolina would be there?
Well, and how they won.
Yeah.
They go down by what, 2?
2. Yep.
Bases loaded. There's 1 out in the 9th. The first guy they have to delay the game
suspended to the next day.
To the next day, they come back.
They come back with what? The bases loaded.
Bases
1
loaded,
out.
1 out.
The guy hits a ground ball to first. He steps on first. A run scores.
Now they're down 1.
He's 0-2 on the hitter and hits him.
Yeah.
0-2 on the hitter and hits him.
And then the next game went like till 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
LSU was down 3-2 in the top of the 9th.
Yeah.
Scored a run, a runner on second. The guy laid a perfect bunt down the third baseline. And I don't know if you saw the replay, but the first baseman, the ball, and the runner all got there at the same time. And the first baseman and the runner kind of rolled over each other.
Yep.
The ball trickled away. The tying run scored all the way from second to tie the game for LSU. And then Coastal wins it with a walk-off base hit in the bottom of the 9th, but at like 1:30 in the morning.
Well, then as they're setting it up, everything's being put into place and all this stuff. You had all these SEC teams, and they were supposed to be the dominant league and everything and all that good stuff. And it boils down to you finally get down to it, you've got it laid out. You've only got one SEC team, and that's Florida.
I had a bunch of money bet before the tournament started that.
Well, don't be saying you had a bunch of money.
I bet a bunch of money that the Big West would have as many teams in Omaha as the SEC, and that the Big South would have as many teams as the ACC. We talked about that this morning. There were 7 SEC teams hosting regionals and 6 ACC teams. So 13 of the 16 regionals were hosted by the SEC or the ACC, and only 1 of each made it. Miami from the ACC and Florida from the SEC. So in Omaha, we have 1 SEC team, 1 ACC team. Interestingly, the Big 12 only had 3 teams in the entire 64-team tournament, and all 3 of them made it to Omaha: Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and TCU. I love the coach at TCU, by the way. I think that guy's done a fabulous job.
Schleich.
Yeah, Schleich.
Where was he before he went there?
I don't know.
Right here in your backyard.
South?
Tulane.
Tulane.
He was
that's right.
An assistant at Tulane.
Yes, that's right.
Oklahoma State's the only team that's 5-0. They haven't lost a game yet since the thing started.
Talk about somebody doing a great job.
Yeah.
That guy's, his brother plays in the Holidays, done a great job there.
And then
They're saying he might be the Texas' next coach.
Texas.
University of Texas.
Yeah.
There's a lot of names going around.
They'll raid Oklahoma State for the Texas job?
I'm just saying what the talk is.
I'm just saying,
LSU
that's a rival.
LSU rated him for a football coach.
That's true. That's true.
We had 3 Big 12 teams, like we said, only 1 Pac-12 team, and that's a shift too, because we've, kind of like softball.
Yep.
When we were young, baseball, it was SC, Arizona State, then UCLA wasn't really a baseball power when I was a kid, but they've come into it lately.
Sure.
When Rod Data was a coach at SC when we were young, seemed like they were either winning it or making it to the finals every single year. Miami, of course, has been a perennial power, mostly under Skip.
Fresno State was usually a perennial baseball power out there.
Yeah,
They showed up, several years.
but Arizona's the only team from the Pac-12, and then like I said earlier, 1 from the Big West, UC Santa Barbara, and 1 from the Big South in Coastal Carolina. So I think it's great that we have 2 teams that have never been there before,
Mm-hmm.
Coastal Carolina and
The Chanticleers.
the Chanticleers and the Gauchos, and then we have Arizona, Miami, Oklahoma State, Florida. The perennial people we talk about all the time. One of the interesting games is going to be the first game on the left side of the bracket with Texas Tech and TCU.
Oh yeah.
They're 2 Big 12 teams that I didn't remember to check how they did against each other this year.
I think Tech took 2 out of 3.
Yep. And they're saying that if TCU can get through that, then they could be, considered the perennial favorite to beat them. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people, even though they were the number 2 overall national seed, a lot of people before the thing started were saying Louisville had the most talent.
Mm-hmm.
They had the kid that plays left field for them got drafted,
Right.
and he's going to be a center fielder in pro baseball. But the center fielder had this year was so good that a guy that's going to be a major league center fielder was playing left field. So they were loaded with talent, which makes the UC Santa Barbara upset even more impressive. Okay, so Saturday at 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock our time, 2 o'clock Eastern, we have Oklahoma State versus UC Santa Barbara. And, Oklahoma State will be the favorite there. Santa Barbara, there's that old team of destiny thing when stuff happens like happened in their 2-game sweep of Louisville. That was also the first time in 2 seasons that Louisville lost 2 games in a row was when they lost the last 2 games to those 2 straight to Santa Barbara. And then Saturday evening we have Miami and Florida against Arizona. No strangers to Omaha there.
Arizona's kind of a surprise because they've got a new coach. Andy Lopez stepped down. Was it last year or the year before? That guy's done a whale of a job. Tadlock at Texas Tech. I think he's been to the World Series now 2 years out of his 3 or 4 that he's been there. And he was at Oklahoma before he came to Texas Tech, and was a junior college baseball coach in the Western Junior College Athletic Conference before he went to. So those guys have done a great job with their program.
Yeah, coaching can make a big difference.
Oh yeah,
in baseball.
Yeah, coaching makes a big difference when you have the talent, and the talent accepts the fact that they have a new coach in there.
Sure.
So you get in there, and those coaches have demonstrated clearly that they speak the same language that these kids want to hear, and they decided that, hey, we're going to step up, we're going to do the best we can to continue to play the best ball that we can. That's what makes it work. You've got the talent, you've got the coach, and everything meshes together, and boom, now you've got programs that are right here where they want to be, and they're trying to win the big crown.
well, and then it all helps recruiting.
Yeah.
TCU success, getting to the World Series all these years, and it's just a continuous cycle.
And you can't pay any of these marketing firms for better advertisement than
No.
playing in Omaha on ESPN.
Not at all.
Yeah, and all the kids see that. Interestingly, UC Santa Barbara came in 3rd this year in the Big West.
Wow.
They were the 3rd place team in the Big West, and must have been a good conference because they made 3rd place team made it to the tournament, and they.
It was an interesting story too about the center fielder for Florida, where he got drafted when he came in, and the coach, because they've got a new coach there, and the coach was just like, you know what, hey, there's something about this kid that he wasn't a great standout player. Not everybody was after him and everything, and the coach just said, I'm gonna take a chance on this kid, and boy, oh boy, what a chance he took, because he turned out to be one of the best ball players on Florida's team.
I saw Auburn had a kid that made first team All-America, but they were pretty bad this year in baseball. see if that new coach, if his way of playing takes hold here in the next couple of years.
Well, that's a question you got to ask yourself about Florida State now is Mike Martin. I mean, he's been there for years. And I know people have, you always have boosters and people close to the program that want certain coaches out. Is that going to put him over the hump at getting him out of the program? But he's been there for 45 years.
I think he's been to 8 World Series.
Yeah.
I think it's 8, but never won it.
Never won.
Never won it. It's kind of.
It's one of the hardest things to win.
Yeah.
Sure. That's why, people, you need to savor it when you do.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've always had the philosophy, when you're thinking about firing your coach, who's out there that's better?
Yeah.
Who can you bring in that's better? I think they're kind of grooming his kid, aren't they, to be the replacement?
Well, that was the talk, but I don't know.
I know
mean,
Auburn's
he's part of the staff, and
I know Auburn's doing that at softball with
Right.
Clint Myers' kids. In fact, I read something the other day. Clint Myers borrowed I can't remember how many thousands of dollars it was for his buyout at Arizona State.
oh,
Arizona State.
Arizona State.
But if he stays through 2018, Auburn forgives that debt. So he's got some motivation to stay.
Sure.
So then on Sunday we have Texas Tech against TCU, Big 12 matchup there at 2 p.m. And then the last game of the first round is one of the Cinderellas, Coastal Carolina versus the overall #1 seed Florida. So that'll be interesting. Florida has their ace.
Well, pretty much in both brackets, everybody's going to be going for the Cinderella team. I mean, at Coastal Carolina, it'd be great to see them in the championship against UC Santa Barbara. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Right.
You're right, but realistically, it's probably going to be Miami and Florida or Oklahoma State and Florida. But it'll be interesting to see if Florida pitches their ace.
What are you going to do when UC Santa Barbara upsets Oklahoma State?
Hey, I'm gonna be rooting, just like Fred said. I'm gonna be rooting.
I'm always for the underdog. I love
you
those
got to go for
stories.
those teams.
If I don't have a dog in the hunt, like if Auburn's not there, I'm rooting for the underdog.
What a great experience for those kids.
Yeah. A couple years ago, it was Slippery Rock.
Slippery Rock, yeah.
And the funny part about that is, if you've ever attended the College World Series in Omaha, that's what the fans do. They get on the backs of these underdogs. They'll be buying UC Santa Barbara Gaucho stuff and the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers stuff.
Yeah, when their team's not playing, they're rooting for the underdog.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Coastal Carolina is not experiencing any financial problems because, remember, their football coach used to be a former. Actually, he's the guy who started. No, it wasn't Beckham. It was TD
Ameritrade.
Yeah, Ameritrade. Yeah. He started that, and he was a former football coach, and he wanted to get back into coaching football. I think he was the CEO of it when he stepped down and went back.
Time.
Yeah.
Isn't Cliff Ellis the basketball coach there?
Yeah.
They made the tournament last year.
Yeah. They Coastal Carolina has done some good things, and they're starting to see the fruits of their labor. All it takes though is you go out and get one or a couple of good athletes, and
they've been there. Coastal Carolina has been there in major college baseball in their conference and their region.
Mm-hmm.
Teams don't want to play them down there in North Carolina and South Carolina because Gary Gilmore, their head coach, has been there a while. He's done a great job, and I look for them to play well.
Yeah, me too. I think part of the reason why the Texas Tech and TCU fans root for the underdog is they'd rather play Coastal Carolina than Florida.
Sure.
I think that's part of it. Well, we're pretty much out of time here. Want to throw out a couple things. One of the you notice we're not dressed in our normal attire today because the three of us plus Dr. Brandon Spradley we have a meeting this afternoon with the superintendent of public schools in Mobile County, Ms. Martha Peak, and she's a wonderful lady. She's helped us out on our concussion program, and we're gonna start an effort to try to bring baseball back to the inner city of Mobile. A lot of people don't know this, but Mobile, Alabama has the highest number of Hall of Famers per capita any city in the country. You know, of course, the minor league baseball team plays at Hank Aaron Stadium. Willie McCovey's from Mobile, Billy Williams, Ozzie Smith, Eddie Stanky.
On and on and on.
And yeah, we've got a picture in one of these rooms of all the major leaguers from Mobile.
Yeah.
And somebody who
Satchel
doesn't,
Paige.
yeah, somebody who knows nothing about baseball could probably coach that team.
Sure.
and do pretty well. But we're really excited about that opportunity for the Sports Academy to be involved in such a project. And I want to, you may have noticed at the beginning, I didn't say that I didn't introduce our producer, Sarah Weber, who's usually sitting behind the camera today. That's because she's actually on her way to the College Baseball World Series. And I know she was disappointed last weekend because she's got some family friend's son who plays for Mississippi State.
Right.
And she went to that regional and they went out and won 2 barbecue. But
she's happy that Florida made it because she's a big Florida.
yeah, she's a big Florida fan. But Sarah will be back next week. She'll be back next week if somebody wins the championship in 2 games.
Sure.
If not, she won't be back until Thursday. But I hope Sarah has a wonderful time at the World Series, and I'm sure she'll have some stories to share with you, our audience, when she comes back. So until next week at 11:30 a.m. Central Time, we wish you a great week in sports. Enjoy the College World Series. And we'll talk to you again at 11:30 a.m. Central Time next Wednesday.
I'm going with the Gauchos because I like the name.
All right. Miami and Florida. Because I like the state.